So, did you do the audiobook or did you read this?
I did the audiobook. It's like I had two sets of mutes happening.
Follow the leader. 1, 2, 3. We may be trapped.
Yeah. You're a handsome devil. What's your name?
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Extra Credits Book Club podcast. This week, have ourselves a lovely little episode with Mincy. Hey, bud. And this
Glad to
week,
be here.
we're diving into The Black Echo by Michael Connelly. The first in a forever series about Detective Hieronymus Bosch, LAPD. Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you guys I fucking love this book. It was so good.
It was a lot of fun. I, I don't know if I loved it, but it wasn't what I expected either.
I liked it much more than I thought. Like, I was more compelled than I thought I would be. I thought I would, like, passively like it, but I really liked it.
Go on.
So
Well, I didn't know. I always thought that I was the type of person who only wanted to watch procedurals, like detective shows, police shows, and not like I didn't think I would be as interested in reading the book. I don't know why. I think I'm getting over a long-term prejudice that books that occur in the mundane world are not books I like.
Okay.
But I really
you
like
what?
this book.
So there was an introduction that was like 3 pages long, and it suggested that crime as a genre is wrongly looked down on,
Yeah.
and that this is like a good piece of literature. So I went into this book kind of I was felt like I was ready to join high society, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So at the start of the book kind of went like I expected, right? He's really analyzing stuff, and at some point it segues into something a lot more character driven, and I guess Bosch, I expected more of like a Sherlock Holmes,
Right.
and he really is kind of an impulsive guy that just follows his intuition.
Yeah, he's kind of
Yeah.
seat of the pants detective. Like he's
Yeah.
goes where the whims take him, and sometimes he's dead ass wrong.
Yeah.
But I didn't write any notes for the introduction. Truth be told, I wasn't paying attention to it. I did remember that the guy was saying like crime novels are often looked down on as a form of, like they're always at the you go to CVS or whatever, and there's
Yeah.
like 10 James Patterson novels or the fucking Godfather's there. It's that kind of book, but at the same
Mhm.
time it's properly.
I think my prejudice came from like the fact that those are my dad's books. Like my dad has read a fuck ton of Bosch. He's read all the James Patterson books, John Grisham, and I was like, my dad and I have a lot in common, but like literature is not one of those things. So I think that's probably where those preconceived notions
Must
came
have
from.
been a harsh realization to go, oh no, I like the same things my dad does.
I am my dad.
But the book starts off with. Does it start with the kid spray painting, and then he sees
Yeah.
some suspicious shit, then he goes, I gotta get out of here?
Yeah.
Right. So we have a kid who's spray painting down by the Mulholland Dam, where they've got a bunch of like drainage tunnels. And he's just like tagging up. He sees his car drop off a corpse, and he panics. And then we cut to immediately Harry Bosch waking up, lavish stilt house.
Mm-hmm.
Nice
Because
house.
It's a pretty
Mhm.
nice house. My first note is, oh, is this pre-Stilt House Bosch? No, it isn't, because it wasn't
I know, I
described.
wasn't sure about that.
It wasn't described as being a super fancy house until later. But me and Nightmother watched the entire Bosch TV series on Amazon,
Yeah,
and he has that dope ass house in it.
yeah.
I was like, oh, is this before he even has the house?
I know, I was like I thought we would maybe one of these cases would be the one that ends up being the TV miniseries that gets him the house, but
Right.
he's already living that hillside lifestyle.
But he's called by the watch commander, who's essentially like, Bosch, pick up your goddamn phone. You've got a case. Goes
Yeah,
down
and
to. Go ahead.
he's mad, right? He's mad because they waited they waited a couple hours to call him because it
Oh,
was dark
yeah.
outside.
He's like, "It's 8:30. You should have called me at 4
Yeah.
when it happened."
Yeah, because they wait till like early morning to call him, as if he's like on like
Like,
normal
doing
work
hobbies.
hours.
Yeah.
But
Hype case.
right, it's a hype case. I'm a hype. You're a hype. Everybody's a hype in this, which is a term I've never heard of before.
No.
Yeah,
Ever.
no.
Someone who's a junkie is a hype.
It feels very early 90s. There's a lot of
This whole
early
book
90s
feels
terms that you
super
wouldn't read.
early 90s. Like everybody's got pagers, everybody's going to payphones.
Yeah.
Like they are constrained by the means in which they can use a telephone.
Yeah, he pulls over to use a map at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are those?
Gross.
But he also he heads down to the tunnels, and he meets his trusty partner J. Edgar, who is very different from the J. Edgar I know.
Mm-hmm.
This J. Edgar kind of seems like a bum. Like he doesn't want to be a cop.
No, he's like waiting for any excuse to just be a realtor full time.
Yeah.
Like he's so willing to hand over cases. He's like, I'm not going to work the long weekend, or I'm going to do the bare minimum over this long weekend.
I kind of felt like Edgar was right about everything, though.
Yeah, he was such a good. Oh
Yeah.
man, I love J. Edgar. And the guy who read the audiobook that we read is the guy who plays Bosch in the TV show. And a fun little quirk is that he, with J. Edgar, with Chief Irving, and I'm gonna assume with Eleanor, he does impressions of the people that are on the show. So when
I missed
whenever
out.
whenever he said like when he was talking as J. Edgar and he goes Harry, that's 100% the guy who plays J. Edgar in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime Irving says like Bosch, that's it. Granted, the impression that he does of Eleanor is fucking wild.
It's so weird because he's spot on for the other two. And then it's like the way that he pronounces Eleanor's vowels. Like they're
Yeah.
long and there's W sounds in them.
It
It's really weird.
really
He's like,
weird.
I don't know, Harry.
We're gonna have to go down there.
And
It's
she
fucking
just
weird.
like she just doesn't talk like that. Like the actress just sounds nothing like that. It's very strange.
But okay, so the body in the tunnel. Can't remember if yeah. The guy they find in the tunnel, the body that was dumped in there, has a bunch of like junkie paraphernalia on him.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, it's just some junkie who died in the tunnel. Whatever. And they pull him out, and Bosch is like, oh, fuck, I know this guy.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, excuse me? What do you mean you know him? And he's like, we were in Nam together. Because apparently, Bosch was in Nam as a tunnel rat. Going through
What a
those
great
VC
job.
tunnels. The worst job. Worst job. Where
Sounds
they
awful.
they just give you a pistol, maybe some matches, and then go, good luck, bud.
Maybe some C4.
Maybe.
Enjoy.
Don't get killed down there. Adios.
I had never heard the term tunnel rat before reading this book.
The thing that got me about the tunnels was like they just kept describing how smelly it was. It was damp and it was just
Mhm.
gross.
Yeah. There's nothing about any of the tunnels in this entire book that seem okay.
Yeah.
No. But I guess Bosch sees the like can of like a half can of spray paint and he's like, that's really weird. Who would leave a full like can of spray paint? And that's kind of how he determines that maybe there was a witness.
Right.
And
Because he
because he
said,
sees like half the tag that's completed inside the tunnel where the body was found.
right,
I
he
think.
said he makes mention that someone who's a tagger or someone who's tagging isn't just going to leave a perfectly, like, mostly full can of paint
Mhm.
behind. That shit's expensive.
Mhm.
So he's like, okay, so we've got a witness.
Yeah, to be honest, I was like spacing out a bit until Bosch goes to Billy Meadows' apartment.
When's that?
Like my notes were so sparse. Well, because he sees like he decides for whatever reason from the way that Bosch sees the body, he like sends Jerry Edgar away. He's like, "Don't worry, I got this." And the way that the body was found, he's like, "I think he was killed somewhere else and brought here."
Right.
And ends up at his apartment where he starts like searching for clues. And I think were cops there before he got there? Or was he the first person to investigate? Or does it
I
matter
think it was
the
the first
order?
one.
I think he was the first one. But it's worth noting that he
Oh,
also, the autopsy, he goes to the autopsy, and at first they were like fobbing him around, like, we'll get to it. Just, it's a fucking junkie. He's dead. Don't worry about it.
mhm.
And Bosch is like, yeah, but one of his fingers were broken really weird. And he's like, no, for real. I need you to check this out right now. And I think somehow it got bumped up. And during the autopsy, the examiner sees the broken finger and he's like, oh, this is what you were talking about. Yeah, this is weird. This is definitely murder for sure.
Mhm.
This wasn't just
Yeah.
like some junkie death. And Bosch is like, nice. Knew it.
Yeah, because they were like he died from a heroin overdose, basically.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But isn't that how he ended up? Like, isn't that how he died? Like by getting
Yeah.
murdered with heroin?
Yeah.
Like really
I gave him a
pure
hot dose.
heroin?
Yeah,
Right.
it was done against his, like, they forced him to shoot up, and then his finger got broke post-mortem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
like he didn't have fresh track marks or anything.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I was getting confused about is that when Harry goes to Meadows' apartment, he's not the first person who's been there, but he's the first like detective that's been there. Like the place
Right.
is kind of ransacked a bit
Yeah,
because he was killed in his apartment and then taken to the tunnels.
right.
So he starts like searching, and that's when he looks behind the dresser and he finds a receipt for a pawn shop as well as like a little photo of himself
Yeah,
and a
him
bunch
and the
of other
gang.
tunnel rats. Yeah.
And
So he
he
decides
takes a
to
moment to have a little, like, black and white Vietnam flashback before he's like, anyway, let's go to this pawn shop.
yeah. And this is where we start getting all the like detailed directions about how long every commute takes and every landmark along the way and every exit that he takes and
Yeah.
every highway.
So like the descriptions in this, like up to this up to this point, like I haven't read a crime novel since I was probably 9 years old, right? So anything that gets mentioned, I'm like,
That
steel trap.
important?
That's gonna, yeah,
No, I can assure you, as someone who lives in like the LA area, this is just how people from LA talk. Describing every exit they use, every street they take. You know it because it's on the corner of like Vine and Selma. That's just like it's nectar of the lost. Like they love telling you how to get from point A to point B, and all the streets you need to take to do it.
Wild.
But yeah, like this book is full of I take the 405, get off at Mount Vernon, and then take it on over to, you know, east north Wilcox. But he does go to this pawn shop.
Yeah, and the owner is very ornery. He's like, I've been waiting for hours for someone to show up. He's like, what do you mean you've been waiting for hours for someone to show up?
yeah.
And
Bosch is like, they're not coming. They don't
yeah.
care.
Yeah. He's like, my fucking pawn shop got robbed, and I called you guys like 8 hours ago. Where you been? He's like, okay, uh, look, I'm a cop. I'll give him a call. I'll get this ball rolling. And he like does the fake, okay, all right, I'll let him know. Thanks. And he's like, yeah, they're on their way,
Yeah.
even though he never dialed out. It's
Yeah, he's a scam artist. He's good at it.
Mm-hmm.
but he, because apparently I didn't know that pawn shops have to tell cops everything they've got in inventory like every month, and like
Yeah,
what
I
they've
didn't know that
sold,
either.
what they've taken.
Yeah, like taking pictures of everything.
Yeah, and he finds out that the receipt was for like a bracelet.
Mm-hmm. It was like gold with like a dragon on it or some
Yeah,
shit.
gold and jade and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And Bosch was like, "Do you have this bracelet?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's one of the things they fucking stole."
Mm-hmm.
And Bosch is like, "Okay, so something weird's going on here." And I can't. I think he goes back to the precinct.
He goes to like the homicide, a different homicide division.
Oh yeah,
Doesn't he? The place where
his
he
old
used to
unit.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, before he got suspended.
Oh, RHD.
Yeah, and there's a kid here there who's like trying to give him beef, but then Bosch like threatens to kick his ass basically.
Yeah.
And he gets scared and like runs away and he's like, fuck you.
Right. Is that the yes? It's the very first "fuck you, Bosch"
Yeah,
we get,
the first
which
of many.
is the most beautiful thing to be said, because the way the narrator read, like the way he says "fuck" is so good. Fuck you,
Mhm.
Bosch. But yeah, and then he finds out about a bank that got robbed using where they like tunneled in. And he's like, wait, could it be connected that this guy, who I know is a very good tunneler,
Yeah, it's kind of his thing.
is involved
Yeah.
in this bank robbery where they tunneled in and stole a bunch of shit? And this bracelet happens to be one of the pieces that was missing from the bank that he.
Yeah, and he's looking through some like files on a computer, like fucking microfiche. I don't know, but he's going through all these files about like Meadows and the bank, and then he sees like the like ED wishes Ellen or initials,
Right.
and then we hear the first reference of like the Dollmaker case, which was an old case of Bosch's
Right.
that will be important later.
He got in big trouble from the doll maker.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all we
But
know
that,
so far.
yeah, and I think this is around the time where he goes to the autopsy.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot. He goes from the guy's house to the pawn shop to RHD, and then he
Mhm.
gets the call that's like, "Hey, we're bumping up your autopsy, so come on down."
Mhm.
And that's where he finds out that, like, yeah, for sure, this man been done murdered.
Yeah, that's where we find out, like, the heroin that he was shot with is, like, far too fancy for, like, black tar heroin he was usually shooting.
Yeah, like it came from the Orient. So he's like, Bosch, this kind of stuff only comes from Asia, man. Bosch was like,
And then there's one point where the guy performing the autopsy is trying to make sure that Bosch is still paying attention, and he says that Billy Meadows has a very, like, unremarkable vagina.
oh yeah, forgot about that. Yeah, and Bosch is like, quit fucking around. I don't want to be here any more than you do.
I like autopsy humor though. It's nice to see.
But they also find a puncture wound in his chest, right? It was and they cut it out, and the flesh was burned.
That's right.
It's a
Yeah.
taser.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
Bosch,
He got tased.
he put this together when he was still doing real detective work. He put stuff together pretty quick.
Mhm.
Yeah. They said it was the kind that like shoots the barbs. And those barbs went in, and they were like, and it was on for a long time.
Right.
So they were really trying to get this guy on the ground before they put all that heroin in him.
Yeah, this chapter felt like a lot of, like, doing errands at a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like the amount of locations visited in the first chapter was hard to keep track of sometimes because I would be like, let myself kind of doze into the story a bit. Then I'd be like, "Well, where the fuck are we now?" He's gone to 3 different places in the last, like, 6 minutes.
Yeah. And all of the chapters are like 2 hours long.
Mhm.
So you're like, I thought we were at the pawn shop. I was waiting for the chapter 2,
Mhm.
but it never came until he goes home again and has a little gander. No, I think he just goes home. The murder book in Jazz is until later.
That's right. Well, jazz is always present, but the murder book is later.
Right.
But he goes back to his fancy stilt house and he's like, "I have to find the bracelet. I need to find out why it was worth torturing and killing a man over."
Yeah.
And then he basically just like starts like reminiscing about Vietnam and drinking beers in his little chair that he likes to sleep in.
Yeah.
I think that's where the chapter ends.
Yep.
Yes. Because the next day he goes to the FBI to be like, "Hey, what's going on with this bank robbery?"
Yeah.
And the FBI is like, why do you want to know? What do you know? Why? What do you want? Listen, pal." And he meets Eleanor Wish, the FBI agent who was on the case with some dude called Rourke.
Who likes to wear red power ties. That's the main takeaway from him that I have.
Yeah, they have a sit down where Bosch basically says, like, I want to know everything that you guys know about this bank robbery case because it might be tied to what I've got. And they're like, maybe. What do you know?
There's something that he says to describe a look that Eleanor gives him, and he says it's the way lady cops and hookers get. And I can't remember what the look it was some kind of, like, tired intensity, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But Eleanor is described as being tall and lithesome, and I liked that. I like that there's no mention of like her tits at
Right.
any point in this book, and I really appreciated that. It's not like it doesn't have the same makings as many like men writing about women where they're like this thing weighed 50 pounds, half the weight of a woman, like shit like that.
Right. It was amazing she could even get through the door with tits like that.
Yeah,
Like,
she
okay.
rolled her eyes and her tits followed suit.
I feel like this was the only encounter with her that Bosch wasn't being a weirdo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like as soon as they start talking again, like after the initial meeting, he's like, but she's kind of hot though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's like
Yeah.
always super awkward. Like he gets so embarrassed after every interaction they have.
Yeah. Because they'll be talking about work, and then he'll be like, so what are you doing afterwards? You want to kiss? She's like, what? And he's like, oh, listen, I gotta go.
Right.
I
But
think
I think what she does say that he was a suspect even, and the only reason they cleared him was because he was in Mexico.
right.
That's
He
right.
was when he got in trouble for the doll maker case, they sent him to they're like, you're suspended, get out of here. And he's like, all right, fuck you, I'm going to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a suspect because he was in the same unit that guy. Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. Was
And
was Bosch a suspect in the bank robbery case too? But then they were like, "Oh, we
no,
decided that you weren't."
he was only a suspect for the bank robbery.
Oh, right. That's what we were talking about.
Because, they're the same unit.
Mhm.
But they're like, oh, well, he was in Vietnam, or he was in Mexico, so never mind, I guess. They
There
still
was
kept his
also
file, though.
Yeah.
oh, that's right. Edgar tries to go get his file and it's gone. He's in
Yeah.
Meadows, so they can't read it.
Right. Yeah. One thing I didn't connect was how did they know that Billy Meadows was a suspect in the bank robbery case? Is that something is that later, or do we know that now?
The bracelet,
Yeah.
I
It's
think
the
he
bracelet?
found on the computer, right?
Okay. Oh, because the bracelet was part of the bank
Right.
robbery.
Yeah.
Okay.
They
That's right.
stole it from
Okay.
the
I
safety deposit
remember
box.
there was, interview witness statements of this old lady who was like, oh, but my bracelet was stolen. How am I ever
Oh,
going to go
yeah.
out now?
She took, like, every press opportunity she could and was like,
Yeah.
"It's the only thing that links me to my past."
Yeah. My dead husband, what'll I ever do now?
I forgot about that. Okay, that's good.
And I think that's kind of what fucked over Meadows, is because that lady made such a stink about the bracelet that it
Right.
was obviously missing and shouldn't have been taken.
Mhm.
So now he's dead.
Right. And then, did Bosch vouch for Meadows? Like, being like, "He couldn't have done it because I know him." Like, he vouched for him
No,
in something.
no.
Okay.
It was never a vouch, but he was like, if there was anybody who could have done something like this, it would have been Meadows, because that dude was weird.
Okay.
Well, I think he helped him get parole for something unrelated,
Yeah,
right?
he did
True.
get him set up with the VFW, I think. Like, he got
Okay.
him set up in Charlie Company, which is like
Right.
a
It's like a
VFW,
halfway house, isn't it?
right, for vets. I think he got him set up there as
Okay.
this guy's having a hard time. He just got out of the clink. So, and he used to be in my unit. So there, and it's only
Mhm.
after that that he got mixed up in all the criminal activities. But every time Bosch thinks about him, he's like, man, that dude was weird. He loved going in those tunnels.
Yeah, it was his favorite place.
And
never
everyone
wanna
else was
see him.
like, it was the worst place on earth. And Meadows was like, "Send me in, coach. Let me get in there." Or,
Yeah.
like, he would come back out with like 4 heads of Viet Cong.
Oh, that story, it's a while later, but it's pretty
Mm.
wild.
That one, I had to, like, re-listen to parts because I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just
But
got lost down there, we caught up with them a week later.
Yeah, it's like, the way that
yeah,
story starts and ends is like, what happened in the middle to
he went
end
down
so
there.
badly?
We wrote him off as dead. He came back a week later, and the war was won.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the kind of damage he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is also the first chapter where we meet Irving, Deputy Chief Irving,
Yes.
who is the angriest man on Earth.
With the most powerful jaw
Yeah,
Yeah.
and neck.
who is so powerful he'll break a molar and swallow the
Oh,
chunks just so that he can keep composure.
Like, regularly, it seems. Like, it seems like once every few quarters, like, he sacrifices a molar in
Yeah.
his jaw flexing, and, it's just because he clenches his teeth so hard all the time, it sounds like getting his molars replaced is something that happens, like, semi-often.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so like, I noticed this so much because I've never had a book describe, like, someone's jaw clenching, jaw flexing, neck veins popping actions, and, like, beyond that, having part of, like, someone's self-identity wrapped up in those things. Like, there'll be parts where Irving is described as clenching his jaw triumphantly and, like, powerfully, and that he likes being seen as the kind of guy with, like, a powerful jaw clench. It's
Yeah.
so strange, but I loved it because it gives you such, like, a specific image about the type of person he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was really good. He came across as just comically evil. I loved it.
But we get, when we're introduced to Irving, we're also introduced to Wonder Twins extraordinaire Lewis and Clark,
Mhm. Ultimate head.
affectionately known as the Great Explorers, 2 internal affairs agents who are so horny for Bosch. They are just like, tell us whatever we gotta do, and we're gonna get him.
Yeah.
Like,
Do
they
we
don't
know
care.
why they're
I
like
think it's because they were on his case for the doll maker, and they wanted him fired, and he didn't get
right.
fired. And they're like, "You're a dirty cop, Bosch, and we're gonna prove it." And he's just like, "Fuck you."
Yeah, I really liked them too. They were also comically evil, but really
Incompetently
kinda
evil.
stupid. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Perfect.
They reminded me of the 2 henchmen that the, like, big time casino owner in Ocean's 11 sets on Danny at the end. I don't know why, but in my head, maybe not in mannerisms, but, like, in appearance, that's how I pictured them. Just always, like, these 2, like, huge, burly, strong, like not strong, but, like, broad-shouldered dudes just, like, in a car that's too small for them, following him everywhere. Picking their teeth with fucking business cards, which is an image I'll never get out of my head and one I find really gross.
Yeah. They're the kind of guys who are constantly, they constantly smell like sweat and like coffee because
Mhm.
they're always in the car staring
Yeah.
at Bosch.
Bosch being sweaty gets brought up a lot.
Hot.
The
True.
book was just kinda smelly,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Los
but
Angeles, though.
he cleans up for Eleanor.
True. The only time.
Yeah.
But I
But yeah,
think,
I
go ahead.
guess um Irving, like, really has it out for Bosch as well, but in a different way because he can't control Bosch and he doesn't
Right.
like that. So he's basically like setting Lewis and Clark on Bosch to keep an eye on him and like prove he's dirty or like get him like literally anything on Bosch, because they always talk about how Bosch is an outsider and he doesn't belong in the LAPD family because is it because he was in the military and he didn't like
No,
start
it's
as a
because
cop?
he doesn't play the same games that everybody else does.
Okay, so it's not as literal as like what he did before he was a cop. It's like
Right.
he just
He
like
doesn't put up with any of the like petty like the internal politics. He doesn't put up with that, and he'll constantly tell people to fuck off and shit. Like he
right.
disrespects his superiors all the time. And he's like, I can't control this man. Bosh.
Mhm.
So he's like, get him out of here. I don't want anything. This guy's gonna be nothing but trouble, so I want him gone.
Yeah, and he wants Bosch off this murder case. Like he doesn't want him on and working it at all. I think the FBI and him are in contact about getting Bosch off the case.
Yeah, he definitely calls the FBI and says, get Bosch off the case. And
Mhm.
Rourke and Wish are all too happy to do so because their first impression of him is shitty.
Yeah.
Because he turned up and he's like, you're gonna give me everything you've got on this robbery, or else. And they're
Mhm.
like,
I
who the
thought
fuck do you think you are?
I thought that it was the FBI that called him, and like
Maybe.
they were just kind of itchy to screw him over anyways.
Hey,
Yeah.
it could have been. I don't remember if it was one or the other, or if it was intentionally vague so that we don't know who
Right.
ratted on who. But
But they both hate
somebody,
him
yeah,
basically.
Yeah. No one
essentially,
wants him
somebody
famous.
called somebody, and we get when Bosch returns to Hollywood Division, his lieutenant, 98 pounds or whatever his stupid name is,
Mhm.
does the like classic action movie cop thing where he's like, Bosch, get my office now!
Yeah.
And just chews him out. And Lewis and Clark are there, like rubbing their fucking grubby hands together, like, ooh, we're gonna get him.
Mhm.
But Bosch essentially just tells everybody in that room to go fuck themselves. And he's like, you
Yeah,
want me
more.
off this case? Then you better pry it off me with your bare hands. Because I'm working it.
Yeah, and he's like, I think Pounds frames it like the FBI are taking this over, basically. Um, but then, like, is this before or after he starts like casually stalking Eleanor? Because this is around the time where he follows her
Yeah.
around a neighborhood and like watches her shop and he's like, I'm just gonna see where she's going.
Yeah.
And he follows her into like a diner
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
sits down with her and she reads him to absolute filth and he gets really mad and embarrassed about it. Like because they have his whole file and she basically gives him his life story from like a free therapy perspective and
Yeah.
is like, here's why, like reads him his like core truth for who he is at heart. And he gets really upset about it because it's true, but he doesn't. He's like, you don't know me, like you don't know you only know
Yes.
what's in the file. You don't know about me and my life and what I like and who I am.
He gives the
And she's like,
classic,
okay.
like, you don't know a fucking thing about me.
Hmm.
He's
Yeah,
like,
I
okay.
mean she brings up the orphan thing. I think that struck a
Hmm.
nerve.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and that's anytime someone brings up the fact that Bosch's mom was a prostitute and that he was an orphan, he's ready to fight them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he starts acting kind of crazy.
But
And
I really oh, sorry.
this is where I realized that he's not the classic detective that I expected and
No.
that he's kind of crazy.
Yeah, he's
He's
got some
Really
hidden
crazy.
feelings.
a grade A asshole.
Mhm.
He's just a lovable one. Like he's really
Mhm.
good at his job.
Yeah. I really felt for him in that moment though, because it describes him like getting embarrassed and like he says his like face starts to go red and he like tries to will it to go away, but the more he thinks about it, the more red his face goes. And that's literally anytime I get embarrassed. Like, or anytime I had to like do a presentation in school or like speak publicly, like I could feel like my cheeks start going red and then I'd be like, no, 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 stop it. But then the more I thought about it, like the more it would be a thing. And it was just really relatable content for me.
Yeah, and he threatens to go to the media, which like
Oh,
if he
yeah.
doesn't get put back on the case, and
Right.
it's like he does this a lot. Like when things aren't, he doesn't get what he wants. He he just makes wild threats.
Yeah. And it works every time. Like if he doesn't get what he wants, he threatens to burn everything down. And they're like, "All right, fine."
Yeah,
Like
Mhm.
if I don't like put me back on this case, or I will go to the media and tell them everything I know so far, and they're like, "Whatever, they won't believe you." He's like, "They don't have to. They just have to print it." They're like, "Fuck,
Yeah.
okay."
And he has that reputation for, like, being this, like, famous, like, TV detective at this point, so they all believe that he'll go right to the media.
Yeah,
That's
he's
such
got
a
contacts.
yeah, it is pretty cringe to threaten to be, like, a detective and to
yeah.
continually threaten to go to the media, though, like
Threatening the FBI.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think this is also where we get introduced to Sharky, who was the kid at the very beginning with the spray can. He's the one who saw them dump Meadow's body in the tunnel.
Yeah, and the way that we get there is from Bosch visiting Ophelia, the person who was able to, like, find his file, basically. Like, he gives her a bunch of search filters to run through the
Oh,
system that she
right.
manages, and that's how they get Sharky's name, I think.
Yeah. Uh,
Graffiti task force.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're just like shitty kid task force.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a white guy with dreadlocks, which is, ugh,
Yeah.
it's no good. It's
Sharky
no good.
is like the kind of kid where you're like, man, grow up.
Yeah.
I loved Sharky. This
Mhm.
is some of my favorite stuff in this book, the Sharky stuff. He man, he was messed up. That was one messed up kid.
Yeah. He's had a
Yeah.
hard time.
Yeah.
But I think Bosch goes to talk to Sharky and he's like,
It
hey,
goes to his mom first, I think.
yeah. And he's like, where is she? Or where's Sharky? And she's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm trying to have phone sex.
Yeah, and, like, the cops that have already talked to her, she might be a phone sex operator, but trust me, she is not hot, and, like, they're like, she doesn't look anything like how she sounds, as if they know, like, what she sounds on the other end
It,
of the phone.
it was so sad, but because he kept getting in trouble for being a runaway, but his mom didn't want him there.
Yeah.
So he just was in this loop of going back
Right.
or
Because the
getting
cops are
released to his mom
constantly.
and then leaving. Yeah.
And, like, who wants to be in a house where your mom's just, like, a phone sex operator and you can just hear her, like, phone fucking people all day?
Yeah. But this is the start of Harry Bosch, patron saint of troubled children,
Mhm.
because he is a troubled child himself.
Yeah.
So he takes Sharky to like a homeless shelter for youths, and he's like, "Stay here. We might have to talk to you again."
Mhm.
And Sharky's essentially like, "Fuck you, man, and give me my pictures back." And he's like, "No, can't have those. Can't do
Oh, yeah,
that."
his
God.
his
Yeah,
nudes that he
Sharky
sells to
selling
closeted
nudes
men.
to
He's very troubled.
homos,
Yeah. But I
pedo
think this is
homos.
all yeah. Um, we get a little scene with Sharky right at the end of the chapter, like,
And this is
while
from the
Bosch is
show.
looking for him.
This
Yeah, I
was
think this is
from the show.
yeah, where, like, Sharky meets up with men in 7-Eleven parking lots and asks him to buy him some beers, and then he's like, "Oh, we could go, like, drink them somewhere a little quieter," and, like, he takes Sharky home and like feeds him, and he's like, you can wash your clothes if you want, like I'm a nice guy, I'm not gonna do anything weird. Like
Yeah.
and then like the rest of his little like motorcycle gang shows up, and they just like beat the guy up
ever-loving
real
shit out of these
bad.
dudes. And then take their money.
Yeah.
The way this is written too is it was really good because nothing was stated explicitly, but it's also obvious what's going on. But it's something that is like it's so gross, like you don't want to admit to yourself that that's what you're reading.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's the end of that chapter.
Yeah.
And now the next chapter starts with Bosch going to meet Eleanor for his like third cup of coffee of the day or something like that. And they start talking about the bank heist.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Bosch is like, she's telling Bosch that he did a good job on the murder investigation, that he was only on for one day. And he's looking at her and he's like, she's hot, but like in a sad way. And he's like not paying attention to anything that she's saying. And he's just like, I kind of have a crush on this lady.
Yeah, no, this is where things really went off the rails for me. Because he's looking at like a scratch on her chin, and
He's
Wh-
like,
why is
damn, I
that?
wonder how she got that.
yeah, he's putting all his detective skills into just
Yeah, Facebook stalking before that was a thing.
yeah.
Because if he could, he would be going through all of her pictures, being like, who's this guy that liked? Because he's constantly like, do you have a boyfriend or husband or girlfriend? And she's like, anyway, enough about that. And he goes, okay. But, like, let's say you went home and there's somebody there. What are they to you? Hypothetically.
Yeah. And like, how much do you care about them? Hypothetically.
Yeah.
And they're like basically like commuting and driving around, and like they're going back to, I think they're going to the FBI headquarters, and he's just like having like little daydreams about her in the car the whole way.
Yeah.
And like just like lost in his mind's eye, being wistful.
Yeah, it made me want to pull my hair out. It was hard for me to get through some of this stuff. It was really cringy and
Yeah.
it was rough.
But thank
Meanwhile-
God Lewis and Clark are fucking like binocularsing him from across the street. They're like, what is he doing? You think he's doing anything illegal? Where they just bicker constantly.
I was never able to separate those characters either.
No, I don't know which
I don't
one
think
was
we're
which.
meant to.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Like one of them is like, okay, let me drive. No, you're on binocular duty. I'm the one who drives. You're on camera duty. And like just bicker all the time. They're also really terrible at their job.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Eleanor spots them immediately. Like they're like made immediately.
Probably doesn't help that they've got a giant camera sticking out of the window.
Yeah, and they're like 3 feet away. They're like, this is far enough.
Yeah.
They won't see us.
Just literally across the street with a giant camera sticking out the window and binoculars. That same car has been following them around all day.
Yeah. And Bosch is like trying. So they go to the FBI headquarters, and Bosch starts watching like the crime video diaries of like the bank heist or something like that. And we find out that they used C4 in the tunnels, and that's how they were. It was connected to tunnel rats because that was the preferred explosives.
Yeah.
Even though it was like more unpredictable and like harder to manage, I think.
Yeah, like there's cheaper stuff.
Right. Yeah. But Bosch doesn't care at this point because he's just trying to figure out if Eleanor and Vork are dating.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, do you think like there's something going on? It's hard to tell with their dynamic. Oh, but then she describes him as a good administrator, and that's how he knows that there's nothing going on between them, because he's like, no one would ever describe someone they're attracted to as a good administrator. But he's spending all of his like detective faculties on trying to like pick apart her language to find out if she likes him like that.
Yeah.
Trying to remember because my notes here talk more about Sharky in chapter 3, but I can't remember if this is when they talk to him.
Yeah, this is when they talked to him the first time.
Yeah, they track him down to the motel basically right after this.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's with his friends and they're like, we don't know him. And Bosch basically like roughs up these kids or threatens them.
Right, and there's like an Aryan Nation white supremacist dude there who's trying to like solicit sex from like a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And
Bosch
Eleanor's
lets
like
him go.
really fucked up
Bosch
about
lets
it.
him go,
Yeah.
and Eleanor
Yeah,
gets
Bosch is
mad.
like, I don't care.
She's like, he was soliciting a minor, Bosch. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. That's not important to the case.
Yeah, he's
And then she
describing like the
pouts.
paperwork nightmare
Yeah.
that it would have been. And she's like, I decided it was worth it.
She pouts for like the rest of the day because she let that guy go, or he let that go. He's just like, you have to get over it. He'll do it again. We'll catch him eventually.
Yeah, and then I think he starts like negging her about what department in the bureau she decided to start working in. He's like,
yeah.
pretty girl like you should have like, why are you at a desk?
Someone like used for white collar crime, not
Yeah.
Yeah, the bank
robberies.
unit's supposed to be for dinosaurs.
That's right.
But I guess she just likes bank robberies, so she transferred.
Mm-hmm. And then Bosch is trying to figure out, like he realizes he's being followed by Lewis and Clark, and he calls into IA, try and figure out where they're assigned, and he finds out they're off duty that day.
Right.
And so he's like, what the fuck? Why are they following me then? Is it just because they want to be following me? Like he doesn't know that Irving has like set them on him, basically.
Yeah, he's essentially giving them carte blanche to do them.
Yeah. But this is where, yeah, but they finally catch up with Sharky and he's just like selling his nudes to pedophiles, as one does.
And when it actually made me laugh out loud. Sharky was like, no, I'm not going in. You're going to take all my shit. I know how this works. And Bosch is like, I'm not going to take any of your stuff, as he's looking through his stuff. And he sees like the nude pictures and he goes, except for these. You can't have these.
Yeah.
That made me laugh.
Yeah, no, he does this to pretty much everyone. He says he's going to do one thing, and then like the girl that the guy was soliciting. He says, "Listen, if you talk to me, tell me where Sharky is. I'm not going to report you. Nothing's going to happen. I'm just leave." Next minute, he's on the phone. And it's everyone. Don't talk to him. Don't believe what he says. He's a liar.
It's every time. He's always like, gotcha.
Yeah.
I lied so that you tell me what I want to know.
Yeah. No remorse, no apologies. Doesn't care how other people perceive him. It's like everything. He just lives for whatever case he's trying to solve. And relationships don't matter. People's perception of him does not matter.
One track mind.
Also, a shocking amount of the gay F word.
Yeah.
From Sharky.
Yes. From everyone. Like
all of
the
Sharky's...
narrator, from Jerry. Like it's
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was the 90s.
So good. Yeah.
The early 90s. But Sharky and his friends were big gay F word fans.
Mm-hmm.
Which is wild because they said they weren't, even though they are selling like nude pictures of themselves to pedos, like tricking dudes into going to have sex with them and then beating them up.
They're just entrepreneurs, you know.
Also, this is also where Eleanor exposes herself as a secondhand smoke nut.
Mm-hmm.
where he tries smoking in her car, and she's like, "Don't you know that kills people?" And he's like, "Boy, okay, sorry."
Yeah.
There's quite a few times where Bosch is smoking and people are like visibly bothered by it, and
Well,
he
he's
just
always
doesn't care.
doing it in closed areas with no windows or doors or
Yeah.
other people's homes. Like, I kind of get it.
My personal favorite, when they went to go talk to that definitely not CIA guy, and Bosch started smoking in his office, and he's like, "Can you not smoke in here?" And he like grinds it out, and it turns out that that's like a ceremonial rice bowl.
Oh, right. He's like,
And
"Well, I saw an ash
Bosch
today."
doesn't even say sorry. He's just like, "Oh, I didn't know."
Oops.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's just gross.
Yeah,
He's a gross man.
he's not a cool guy, but he is cool. He's cool because he isn't cool. Like he doesn't give a
He
fuck
just
about
doesn't give a
nothing.
fuck. Yeah, he's confident, he's singularly driven by his purpose, and he doesn't give a fuck about how people see him. And he's good at what he does
Yeah.
most of the time. It doesn't really matter how he gets there.
But after they interrogate Sharky, and I think
Eleanor's
they,
really bad at it. She's really
yeah,
bad at interrogating.
she tries to like grease him, and he's just like, "Fuck you, lady." And Bosch
Yeah,
is like,
Bosch is like, "Did
"Told
you
ya."
murder that guy?" And Sharky's like, "No." And Eleanor's like, "Can I see you outside?"
Oh
She's like,
yeah,
"Did you read him his rights?"
yeah. She keeps trying to
Eleanor,
go buy the book on him. He's like,
Mm.
I've never even read that book. Leave me alone."
Mm.
she was pretty bad at police work throughout the
Yeah.
book.
But we establish that two dudes drove up in a Jeep and dumped Meadows into the drain pipe.
Mm-hmm.
And that is essentially the entirety of the information they get out of Sharky.
Yeah.
Before they're like, okay. And then they cut him loose. And I think send him back to one of the shelters. I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, did we mention that Sharky is the guy who was like doing the graffiti and called 911 and that's how
Mhm.
they notified him?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I can't remember if we mentioned that he was the one who called 911 or not.
Yeah. He was the 911 caller and the guy who seen it.
Okay. Good. Good.
And after that, Eleanor kind of gives him the cold shoulder, but then also, yeah, she's pissed because she thought he was bad at interrogating, but really it was her. She got pissed. They went their separate ways. Bosch went home and is enjoying some jazz, beer, and murder book.
His favorite things.
His favorite thing.
Every night.
And then she shows up.
Mm-hmm. But before she left in a huff, she revealed to him that she had a brother who died in Vietnam.
Right.
And then he feels really bad about it. He's
Yeah.
like, fuck, I should have known that that's what she was going to say after that. He was
Yeah.
like feeling kind of bad about it.
I should have actually read her file.
Yeah.
But I don't think she comes inside. She just turns up at his house.
Well, they have a little beer on his deck, and then she comes inside for a brief moment so they can have like a little moment of tension when they pass really closely by each other behind a counter. That's
they do
really
that butt brushing.
yeah. And
And
Bosch is like, her hair smells like apples.
yeah, I made a note here that says a little light romantic chat about a man who never really came home back from Vietnam. Because I think that's when Bosch was talking about how Meadows was that spooky guy who, like, he never wanted to leave Vietnam. Like, he loved it there. It was in his element.
Yeah, this is when we get the tunnel story.
The story where they had a tunnel that was complete unknown. So they sent like Bosch, 2 other guys, and Meadows in. And Bosch came out. The other 2 guys are dead, and Meadows was completely gone. Like he disappeared. And then several days to a week later, he turns back up with like 5 corpses, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Ooh, check
Is
it
it
out."
corpses or is it just a piece of corpses?
I think it
and a
was.
lot
I
of
think it was
pieces of
heads.
It was
it was
ears.
it was
Oh,
ears,
He had a
yeah.
necklace.
It was the
Right.
necklace that he
The
made of 33 ears.
Yeah, the ultimate madness thing is ears.
That really fucked me up because they're like, why was it only because everybody thought it was like both ears from everybody, and why was it an odd number? What did he do with the one ear? But it was like, no, he
It was
killed
1 ear from
one
everyone.
ear from everyone he killed.
Yeah.
And they just
And they
found
were
him
like,
like sitting in a
"Oh."
tunnel with his ear necklace, like rocking back and forth, being like, just leave me here. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was
and
gone.
he does mention that he was never the same after that.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable knowing that why someone would come back and get on the heroin, become a hype.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
he started the heroin in Vietnam.
Well, yeah, probably after the fucking ear necklace. That would turn
Yeah,
anybody.
probably that night.
Probably that day.
Yeah.
Shit. But then Eleanor's like, it's getting late. I should go.
Bye. Let me get chapter 4. My first note for chapter 4 is ew, Ventura Freeway. Because I think he was going where?
They're going to visit Charlie Company.
This is where they have to pull over and use a map.
Oh, right.
Right. Yeah. Like the olden times.
And they use the Ventura Freeway, which is the worst. Just the worst.
Okay, paint us a word picture.
All the way out of the way. Imagine a city, and then there's another city somewhere else. Nearby, but not quite nearby, but also just far enough away to be the worst inconvenience. And then the Ventura Freeway connects those two. You've got to go all the way out of your way to get to the Ventura Freeway.
Sounds like Tawassum. That's my lower mainland equivalent.
So they get to Charlie Company and
Oh yeah, they meet the guy who sponsors the like ex-cons. The vets who became criminals. And like he's so
right.
good at sponsoring ex-cons that they beg for his sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where when Bosch got the call from Meadows that he needed help getting out of jail. This is where Meadows ended up going.
Yeah.
That's right. But I think on the way to Charlie Company, Eleanor's giving Bosch a little bit more information about the bank heist, and we find out that there were 2 identical vaults in the bank, the main vault and then the one that had all the safe deposit boxes in it.
And they only went for the safety deposit boxes.
Yeah. And Bosch is like, why didn't they go for the main vault when arguably there'd be more money in there and the vault designs are exactly the same? And Eleanor's like, well, they couldn't have been able to scope it out beforehand because there's no access to the main vault. They would be able to like store something in a safe deposit box and go in there and get a lay of the situation
Right.
and plan on how to tunnel into it.
I think that's when he's like, okay, so they must have had somebody who has a box.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But
And this is where Bosch is like, maybe there's something in the boxes we didn't know about, something that no one reported missing. And Eleanor's like, maybe drugs. And is this when she starts like talking about the guy who was storing cocaine in a safety deposit box?
I don't know. There's a lot of like wild deflection from Eleanor. He's like, okay, so presumably the thing that was stolen would be something that isn't reported lost, especially if they're taking it from someone who might not want it to be known what was in that box in the first place. And she's like,
Mhm.
oh, it must be drugs or, cocaine. I heard a story once about a guy who had a cocaine in a safe deposit box. And he's like,
That's
okay,
right.
okay.
Eleanor is
Fucking weird.
always wrong.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Especially when Bosch is dead on.
Mhm.
He's like, no, that's not true.
Yeah, we ruled it out. In fact, we didn't even consider that.
And more reminiscing. Lots
Mhm.
of black and white flashbacks for Bosch.
Mhm. We find out Meadows became, like, religious before he died, which is not important, really, but a detail that we receive. And, but the important takeaway they get from this meeting with the guy who runs Charlie Company is that they get a list of 24 names of all the people that, like, Meadows was hanging out with there, and they, like, demarcate all the ones that had a purple heart, and there's, like, a bunch of them on there, and Eleanor's like, "What's that?" He's like, "They're probably just more dangerous."
Yeah. I think I remember thinking what a stupid thing to say. Because Eleanor was like, oh my god, all of these guys have purple hearts. And he's like, yeah, it's a VFW. Half of these guys were shot.
Yeah, and this is, like, around the time where Bosch is, like, he really wants to hypnotize Sharky, and he keeps bringing
Oh,
it up.
yeah.
He's, like,
I keep
weirdly
forgetting
into the
about
idea
that.
of hypnotizing him, and they, like, put in an official request with the FBI, and they're like, "Yeah, like, I really gotta hypnotize him, and we'll
Yeah, I
find out
just
all
really
the
want to find
answers."
out. Because
And that just
Right.
seems
I bet he saw the driver of that Jeep. I bet he
yeah,
did. And
but it's
Eleanor
Right.
is
so
hard
weird that he
like,
would be into
no,
that.
I don't know if that's a good idea. We shouldn't do that. I don't know. Maybe that's not such a good idea. Are you sure, Bosch? Are you sure that's what you want to do?
Yeah. But it
And
just
it,
seems so out of character
yeah,
that
it
he
is
would be
really weird.
so,
Yeah.
like, it's like, "This is reliable."
And the problem was that if they hypnotize him, they can't use him in court.
Right.
So like that was the holdup and
Oh.
why like they didn't do it right away.
Because it's mumbo jumbo.
Right.
And
Mhm.
mumbo jumbo does not hold up in court.
No,
So
no,
weird,
no.
though.
That's straight from the law book. I think this
But
is they like they go to Eleanor's house after Charlie Company.
Yeah, Eleanor's like, "We should go for dinner at my place," 'cause
Oh
the
yeah.
night before,
She
Bosch
finally
asked
says
her
yes.
yeah, Bosch was like, "Okay, like, we should end the day here, let's go grab some dinner," and she's like, "Oh, no, I have plans," and then that's what triggers their fight, 'cause Bosch is so butthurt that she said no to going out for
Oh
dinner with
yeah.
him, and he's like, "Well, you're really bad at your job." She's
Yeah.
like, "Wow, I didn't realize that you got so, like, ornery anytime a woman turned you down."
I couldn't believe she said yes to dinner. Like it
Well, she like for as much as Bosch has been like cartoon wolf like eyeballing her, she's been doing the same thing to him,
yeah,
but with a
Mhm.
little more tact.
because he started showering once they met.
Yeah.
But they go to her place, which is on the beach. And Eleanor has, by the way it's described, is one of the most tacky houses I've ever heard in my life. That house is decorated like shit.
Like Umbridge's office when she's the defense against the dark arts teacher.
Exactly. All it was missing was a bunch of fucking
The cat
commemorative
plates.
cat plates.
And Bosch is in there like looking at everything. Just why?
Yeah.
Why does she have this?
And she's got
Why? What's to say about her?
Yeah.
a print of the Nighthawks. That painting of the guy at the diner. I think it's called
Mhm.
Nighthawks.
I had to look it up, right? I knew about that painting,
Right.
so it's pretty famous if I know about it. Yeah.
And he is struck by this painting, and based on what was described of Eleanor's house so far, when he got to the Nighthawks painting, I was like, that clashes with everything in here. That doesn't belong in this house at all.
See, I was so focused and frustrated with Bosch doing the detective thing in there. I didn't think about what it looked like at all. I was just upset.
Yeah. It's like yellow. There's like fucking dowlies everywhere. It's terrible. There's like home is where you lay your head kind of shit hanging from the, like, eat, pray, love garbage. Like,
Yeah.
Eleanor, come on.
But why?
And
I will
also-
say, I ate this part up. I fucking love that they were bonding over like mutual like comfort and connection. It wasn't just about like him like objectifying her. I think it was so refreshing after all of the really bad young adult fantasy we've read up to this point. Like they were actual like human people
Yeah, that's a good point.
connecting over shared experiences or shared self-perceptions or mutual loneliness. Like it was like two human beings kind of falling for each other, and I thought it was very endearing.
Yeah.
But I think I was more susceptible to it because it's been hard goings before we arrived at this book.
I've got this quote written down from Bosch. He tells her, "I like spaghetti."
Oh yeah. When she's like, I can make pasta. Do you like pasta? And he goes, I like spaghetti.
Oh, dude. I couldn't I think it's mostly his internal dialogue that bothered me so much. Less than what he had to say.
There was also that moment where she put on a jazz album and she's like, it's such and such by so and so, and he's like, oh, I have that one. I'm like, you didn't even have to say that. I just assume you've got it, Bosch.
Yeah.
If it's a jazz album, I assume you've got it. And I also made a note that she would make pasta. She would be the kind of date to make pasta. It's so low energy and so low effort.
Well, I've had a long day. Maybe it's the best she can do.
Like, she invites him over for dinner and then goes, I don't have much, but I can make pasta. Why'd you invite me over then?
Kraft mac and cheese.
She's bad at police work. She can't make dinner.
My next note.
Throw the whole Eleanor out.
My next note explains exactly what happens after dinner. And that is, thank God we didn't have to hear Titus describe sex.
Yeah.
We
would be in Bosch's head. It would. Oof.
I love Bosch as much as the next guy, but I don't need that.
Yeah, but they talk about the doll maker case here too.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because he explains that it was like some guy who was killing hookers and then like doing up their makeup to make them look like dolls. And he
just did their makeup, I think, but the media was like, let's call it the doll maker case. Like, let's spin it in a way that sounds creepy. But he was doing like a Ted Bundy thing where he was just like doing their makeup a little bit.
Yeah. But I think the long and short of it was that he blew away the suspect and didn't wait for backup. He didn't.
Right. He got a phone call from a woman that described some of the makeup I think he had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that hadn't been released to the media, and he thought, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's he do? He drives over there, busts in with his gun drawn.
Yeah.
And shoots the guy while he's reaching for his toupee.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
smokes him.
How's he not in prison? Like, what? What are you talking about?
Mincy, it was a good shoot. It was a good shoot. He was a killer, man. No judge.
He was right.
No judge
He
in
was
the
right.
county. But he did get in trouble.
Yeah, he had
he
to
just
take a
didn't get
trip to
fired.
Mexico. It was tough on him.
Mm-hmm.
But while Bosch and Eleanor are having sex, Sharky's in trouble.
Yeah, he's getting into a car and it's like, oh, something bad's about to happen.
Now, I have seen the show. And this particular instance is exactly how it played out in the show. So as soon as it started happening, I was like, oh no, Sharky. Rip,
Yeah.
buddy.
I
Sorry.
think part of the reason why I like the Sharky sections of the book, which it's pretty short, is because we're not with Bosch. It's just like I get a break for a second.
Yeah.
Like of his inner monologues.
Yeah. And it's the writing style is a lot different too. Like I was saying earlier, like there's a lot of things that are implied heavily instead of just stated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it's because Bosch is so, like, he's constantly thinking of everything and looking at everything and just he's constantly scanning everything that the author is always throwing these details at you that when the narrative shifts somewhere else, you don't get any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
His mind is an exhausting place to be inside
Yeah.
of. He never shuts it down. My first note for the 5th chapter is that Bosch is having a sleepover with Eleanor and he's doing his best because it sounds like it's been a long time for our man and he's like, what are bodies?
Yeah. My note here is, oh no, Bosch is an oaf in bed. How embarrassing.
And he's
Well, it
just sitting
seems
there
like it was
smelling her hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apples.
I think this is when J. Edgar pages him.
Pages him. Yeah.
The 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when he finds out that Sharky is hella dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go meet him. It's like he died under like
It's in a
under an
tunnel.
overpass or a tunnel.
It's
Yeah.
a tunnel near the Hollywood Bowl.
Okay.
I also had to look up the Hollywood Bowl. I was thinking it was a bowling alley.
The
Wow.
amphitheater.
Right.
Up in the hills. But there's a weird, like, this whole scene is weird. Like, a lot of weird things are happening. Like, Eleanor starts acting weird. J. Edgar is like, oh, you and Lady Cop showing up together? And Bosch is like, don't fuck with me, J. Edgar. And he's like purposely trying to make it seem like they weren't just like inside each other 45 minutes ago. But it's clear J. Edgar saw it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And also having to contend with the fact that there's a 16-year-old boy with his throat opened up over there.
Yeah.
And it's smelly again. We're going back to a tunnel and it smells bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it smells gross.
But I think this is where J. Edgar, because he's assigned to this murder case. And he's like, listen, man, Memorial Weekend is coming up. Last year, I sold 4 houses in this weekend. Like, I'm going to do the bare minimum on this case. So if you want it, you can have it. Because I'm going to be working this like a 9 to 5. Because I got houses to sell.
And Bosch is essentially like, yeah, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about it. Thanks, Harry.
It's weird because all the characters, like you brought up earlier, how J. Edgar, like he doesn't want to work, but all the characters are really, really motivated, right? Like he doesn't want to work being a police officer. He wants to sell houses. Like Sharky is just some street kid, but he's like doing some really crazy, ambitious, violent crime that ends up getting him killed.
All in the pursuit of making dosh, baby.
Yeah, Yeah, everybody is trying to make money, or I guess in Bosch's case, solve crimes. Like they're really making moves.
Mm-hmm. No one's just sitting around playing their video
Yeah,
games.
yeah. Nobody ever relaxes.
No, no.
No,
This is
they
the
really
least
don't.
relaxed book.
I don't remember what happens after they deal with Sharky being dead.
Bosch starts thinking about how there must be somebody on the inside working with the bank robbers
Oh,
and the
right.
murderers. And they go to the
Because
bureau. Yeah.
he's like, why is Sharky dead? The only people who knew that he was involved were me, Eleanor, the FBI, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So someone has to know. And he starts
And
getting suspicious.
right.
Yeah.
And Eleanor, she doesn't see it the same way, and she's like really cold-hearted
Yeah.
towards Sharky. She's just
Yeah.
like, well, he was a criminal, so he
Yeah.
got killed.
He
It
was
is
a
what it
bad
is.
kid.
Yeah.
He was a bad
Live by
boy.
the streets, die by the streets.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, Jesus. Okay.
She has some messed up stuff going on in her head.
Mm-hmm.
She's very, I don't know. She sees things as black and white, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in like a weird, that's what you got out of that kind of way? Like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they start like getting a little distant with each other, and I was like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
like this little wedge between them. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just like they were just having a cute time, and like I'm really here for this romance.
My my note is, wow, one night of sex and Eleanor went Ice Queen. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we're not sure at this point if it was their night together or Sharky that soured her.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think something I can't remember. They go to the bureau and he's like, and Eleanor's like, please don't just go in there and start flinging around accusations that there's a man on the inside. Like, can we please just
Yeah.
like get
Yeah.
some evidence first?
And Bosch says,
Um,
okay, I won't.
yeah. And then there's one moment where the quote is Bosch looked at her and wanted to say something to please her or something like that. Like he really wants her, like he's trying to gain back this lost connection that's happened over the course of the evening.
He's really
Um
clingy.
yeah, but he's like not verbally to her. Like
Right.
he can't prevent the little thoughts he's having. And I enjoyed that. I thought it was very like an honest.
Yeah, it was honest. That's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm. But I guess this is where Bosch finds out that Eleanor told Rourke, her partner at the FBI, that Lewis and Clark were tailing them, but she didn't tell Bosch
Right.
that they were tailing him. And then I think we're back with Lewis and Clark. Like I can't remember if this happens in the evening, but the next
I think it's
Bosch
like
finds out his
super
place
early morning.
is. Yeah, he goes home and he finds that his place has been bugged.
Right.
And this is where he finds Lewis and Clark outside and he handcuffs them to a palm tree.
And pulls their pants down.
Yeah,
hold on a
he
second.
high school bullies them.
This is a lot has happened. Like I think we've skipped. I've got notes here.
I probably zoned out for a bit.
Because at some point, and I forget how it happens, but they find out that there were two people who smuggled an absolute fuckload of diamonds in from Vietnam, and that was what was in those safety deposit boxes.
I think that's after. I think that's after he does all this shit with Lewis and Clark.
I only say that because my note here is Bosch, that's not an ashtray, and immediately after that is diamonds, huh? And that's before LeMayo get fucked Lewis and Clark which is when they got handcuffed to the tree.
Okay. Okay, then maybe I mean, I could be totally out of order, which would make sense.
It's but yeah, they at some point they go and talk to this contact that Eleanor has, and he's like, "Is he CIA?" And she's like, "He works for a department." Like, okay, and it's clear this
Mhm.
guy has like mega CIA connections, and he's like, "Oh, I work for
Right.
the Department of shipping things here and there,"
Mhm.
and he
There
basically,
was they went somewhere else before that though. Bosch had a friend, Hector, and the only
oh
reason I
yeah,
bring
the
this up,
immigration guy.
yeah, the only reason I
Mhm.
bring this up is because like Bosch he's pouting, like he's upset, and this is the moment where really start to enjoy this book again. Like it jumps the shark, but in a good way. The secretary for this guy is sitting there, and she wants a 5-letter word for a man of constant sorrow and loneliness.
And he says
And then
Bosch.
next, yeah,
And she's like, "What?" And he goes, "I'm here to see Hector." Uh, yeah, that was really good because he clearly wasn't talking about her dumb crossword, but at the same time, he absolutely
yeah. So this kind of changed my attitude on what I was reading because I felt like I'd lost the detective story and I didn't know what was going on, and we got to this, and I really started to enjoy the book again.
Well, this is often the way of crime detective novels, where you start out with a murder, and then as you start to get more pieces of it, like the scope gets bigger and bigger and bigger, like this goes all the way to the top.
Mhm.
And that is, we're currently in the how big does this go phase of the story, because now like Vietnamese nationals smuggling diamonds is involved, and you're just like, at what point does this stop? The CIA knows about it?
Mhm.
Because he goes to Hector to find out about these two cats who came back from Vietnam, and he wanted to know if anybody in this time span came over, and I think the results that came back was like these two guys came back and their immigration was expedited like crazy.
Right.
Like the time between them submitting paperwork to leave, it getting accepted, and then them coming to America was like 3 days.
And they left Saigon the same day as Meadows.
Yeah, the day,
Right.
The
the
fall of
day the
Saigon.
last
Yeah.
last hopped her out of Saigon.
Right.
Mhm.
So he's like, okay, so what do these guys have, or who do these guys know that got them in the country so fast? But there's no way of knowing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they said there were discrepancies on the file that said they thought they had some connections.
I think that's when Eleanor is like, I know a guy who definitely does not work for the CIA. He might know a little something about it. And I believe he's like, there were these two guys who were working as cops in Saigon, and they were basically like street hustlers. And there was like the GIs worked out a deal with them so that they could keep working, leave them alone, and they made a whole fuckload of money.
They
He's like,
ran that
okay,
city.
but how did they bring it over? $50 million is a lot of cash to bring over. Suitcase.
Mhm.
I think it's important though that everyone knows that this guy called Eleanor Ellie,
Oh yeah.
and
Right.
Bosch was already, he's kind of upset, and that he didn't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is
When
this man to you?
this CIA man called Eleanor Ellie, Bosch's eyebrows hit the ceiling. He was like, "Excuse me?"
You got something going on with him too?
And he's like a 60-year-old man.
Yeah. Why does he call you? What did you do?
But yeah, they find out these two Vietnamese nationals brought in a whole bunch of illegal money into the country, probably through diamonds because, they're tiny, worth a lot. And Bosch is like, that's it. That's what was in those safety deposit boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes home so that he can beat up Lewis and Clark.
I was so confused at this point because does he just leave him there?
Mm-hmm.
So he's had them handcuffed to a palm tree all day?
No, I forget.
Because I swear he did all this before he went to go see this guy.
Maybe?
The more I think about it, the more, because he goes home early that morning. He finds out his phone is bugged, and that's like the last straw for him. So he goes out to where Lewis and Clark are in their car, pulls them out of the car, and is like, who bugged my place? Which one of you guys bugged my place? But I mean, I'm positive, but I could be wrong.
Well, because
Does it matter?
I don't
I don't
remember
know.
the specifics either. But just understand that Bosch finds a bug in his phone. He sees Lewis and Clark outside. He goes out, beats the shit out of both of them, and then handcuffs them to a tree. And they're like, Bosch, you better cut it out, man. And he's like, which one of you has a key? And they're like, oh, thanks, you're going to let us go? And he takes the key and like chucks it down the street.
And pulls their pants down.
Yeah, he pantses them too.
Yeah.
So disrespectful.
But there's another thing that happens with Lewis and Clark after they leave this guy's place. Like after they go, and I think another important takeaway after this meeting with this guy, Ben, who is the guy who's not CIA, or is this different?
No, Ben is one of the Vietnamese nationals.
Okay, so I must have missed the part where they visit the CIA guy. Just like flew over my head.
Because they don't know about Ben or Tran until after they talk to Mr. Blacksite.
Okay,
Right.
okay, that makes sense.
But yeah, he would have had to have beaten up Lewis and Clark after or before CIA. Because that's when because he goes immediately to go talk to Ben, which is where he uses the bug that he took from his own phone.
Yeah. That's right.
He also, when they're handcuffed to the tree, he makes wild threats about suing them in the department and
Going to the media.
yeah, taking it to the Supreme Court.
Right.
Oh wait.
They haven't visited Ben yet, but we find out about the guy named Ben. We find out that there's a guy named Tran. Each one of them had some amount of the money that they made in Saigon. So now they're like, oh, maybe we think there's going to be a second heist because there are more diamonds somewhere. Well, what we think are probably diamonds somewhere, but we don't know where they are. And we think maybe they'll do this heist over the long weekend. But we don't know where, like, the diamonds, we don't know where they are.
Yeah, but this is also when a car tries to murder Eleanor and Bosch. Because they're going home because Eleanor's like, you want to go fuck some more? And he's like, yes. So they head back to her place, and as they're walking up to her door, a car decides to like swerve off the road and try and kill them. Yeah. Bosch loses his fucking mind and goes like hell or high water on this dude. Full ass car chase.
Yeah.
They both shoot at the car first before the car chase. They just
that's right.
Yeah, like classic 70s cop where they're just standing in the street like
yeah.
But like when they're at dinner together, Bosch is he's in his mind's eye again, having like another little reverie, and he's like, I'd love to be in love with this woman. And he's just like thinking
That is easily the most cringe shit to ever happen in this book, where he's like, I bet I could fall in love with her easy. I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. You're supposed
I
to be
thought
in
it
like
love
was
with
2
her.
days.
endearing.
And so the guy that they chase, they get the wrong car. It's a
Right.
lawyer. Bosch roughs him up.
Mhm.
And the only reason anyone is mad at him is because he's threatening to sue.
Right.
Nobody even brings up the gunfire.
No, they don't care about that. They are upset because they're like, Bosch, you had, of all the fucking cars in Los Angeles, you pulled a guy out and beat him up and it was a lawyer.
That's
And
just
that's
Bosch's
it.
luck.
That's it. That's the only reason they were mad. They don't care that somebody got beat up. They don't care that they fired their gun randomly at a car. And that they drove the wrong way on the freeway for a good, like, mile and a half.
Yeah. And everyone just tells him it was probably a drunk driver.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's my third note, calling Bosch insane.
He is
Mhm.
insane.
But Lewis and Clark, after Eleanor and Bosch are out for dinner, like they're trying to follow them back to Eleanor's place, but they get stopped by this like security guard at Eleanor's like complex or something. And he's like, listen, like you can't come in here. This is private property. They're like, we're LAPD. And they like try to strong arm this security guard into letting them into this complex. And they just come out of that whole altercation looking very bitch. And they like can't follow them so that they don't see the car try and hit them. They're just like arguing with the security guard getting
Right.
shut down. They're just
Forgot about that.
bumbling idiots.
Yeah. Lewis and Clark are really terrible cops.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the best.
Okay, I have to use the restroom and refill my beverage. So would you guys mind a brief break?
Not
Sounds
at
good.
all. I'll do the same thing.
Okay, we'll be back, everybody. Don't go anywhere. 3 minutes max. Okay, bye, everyone. okay. Wait in line for the bathroom like a little bar. So we're on chapter 6 now.
Mm-hmm.
And because all these chapters are so long, I don't remember what happens in any specific chapter. My first note for this is Losh cares. Because he said something to Eleanor that made me write that.
Well, she smiles at him at one point and it cures him of all fatigue. They're like interrogated all night, basically, about getting almost run over by a car and then chasing him down on the highway.
Yeah.
I think once they get out of the interrogation, this is where he calls J. Edgar and he's like, call me in 10 minutes and tell me that I have to leave or something.
Right.
And this is
That's
where
when
they go to see Tran,
That's
who's
when they
going
go talk to Bin.
Who's a small business owner.
Yeah, he's a small business owner. But I
Bin's
also,
Electronics.
when he called J. Edgar, I made a note and said J. Edgar has almost no screen time, and I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
I love J. Edgar.
Oh, right. I remember that they're going to see Bin right now because the accent that Titus Welliver chose to use for Bin was questionable at best.
It's not offensive, but it almost is.
Yeah. It's not like
It's not a full-blown accent, but it's definitely like speaking cadence.
no, it's not what the audiobook performer for Three Body Problem did with the African ambassador or the
And nowhere near that bad.
Any of the accents that man did.
You know, they do mention though that they think he's faking his bad English.
Yeah.
True. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's definitely like really leaning into the I'm not from here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But they go in and J. Edgar pages him so that he can be like, "Oh, can I use your phone?" And then Bosch does this sneaky thing where he puts the bug that he took from his own house, puts it in the phone, and then goes, "Yeah, okay, got it. We'll be there in a few. Okay, bye-bye," and then hangs it up. And Eleanor's like, "What are you doing? Can't do that." And he's like, "Would you cut it out? Every time you do this, you're dead wrong." But she's like, "We'll never, like, whatever happens on that phone, we can never use in court." And he's like, "I'm not using it to gather evidence. I'm trying to find out who this Tran motherfucker is."
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But then the phone conversations in Vietnamese, and of course they don't speak Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Great detective work, Bosch.
Yeah.
But he uses a tape recorder that he also stole from the bug in his house to record the dial tone so that he can send it over to like the police dispatch and go, "Give me a number for this dial tone."
Yeah.
Oh, that's
it's
right.
pretty smooth.
Mm-hmm.
So they know where Tran is. They go and talk to him, and it is the fastest dead end they've ever come across.
Yeah, that's right.
I made a note about how Eleanor just forgot about other counties. It was in Orange County. And
Yeah.
I guess the FBI just glossed over that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Technically not a part of LA County, even though it's connected.
She just is really bad at her job.
It's surprising at how bad the FBI are in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like have their feet up on their desks like, "Yeah, this thing will solve itself. We'll just wait it out." When it clearly isn't.
Yeah, and I think this is around the time where they narrowed down the like trans real estate holdings or something, and they go to Beverly Hills and they find the safe and lock place.
Yeah. This like bougie ass safe and lock place in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
And they go and take a tour of it, and it turns out that like most of that safe, like that whole like facility is super phony. Like none of the security measures are legit at all.
And there's
Yeah.
no regulations
Yeah.
because it's
No.
not a bank.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just like a place for rich people to stick their nice shit.
But at the same time, like they have this big like Titanic energy about it.
Yeah.
Like this place is this ship
Yeah.
is unsinkable. Like this vault is
No one could ever
impenetrable.
break in.
No one would dare break into a place that has glass. Like he's like shows the vault, it's all glass, and like look, it's in plain view of the streets. No one would dare
Yeah.
break into this vault.
This guy basically says this place is impenetrable. No one can get in, and even if they could, like everyone would be able to see on the street, so it would be foolish. And then Bosch goes, "Oh, damn, okay, that sounds pretty cool. Like, what kind of security measures?" And he goes, "Oh, like actual ones? Oh, it's not that kind of place."
Yeah.
And I think he has to.
I really like this conversation because we're finally somewhere that doesn't smell.
Yeah,
And
we're in Beverly Hills,
Bosch
baby.
is acting all fancy. Like again, it was like a nice break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. From the grime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bosch goes into this lock and safe place, pretending to be a man of high esteem, where he's like, "Yes, I would like somewhere to place all of my valuables."
Yeah.
As
of
if,
which
like,
I have many.
Like he's doing this like wink and nod thing, like my valuables, and the guy's like, "Right, those." And he's like, "So what kind of things are mostly kept here?" And he's like, "Well, a lot of old ladies bring in their mink coats in the off season." Bosch is like, "Ah, yes, I have many of those to place here because I'm a customer and very rich."
So he goes in to like tour the vault, right? And
Yeah.
Tren's there too, getting his diamonds out because he was tipped off on the phone call.
Ben called him, told him
That's right.
a couple of honkies are sniffing around. So go get your diamonds. But I think this is when they start setting up like, oh, they're like, okay, this is definitely where the second heist is going to be. So they set up like the sting operation where they pull in everybody. The FBI is there, Beverly Hills police are there, and completely left out of the loop. Like the FBI is like, oh, Beverly Hills cops, get real. We don't need you. Who are you even? And they're like, come on, let us in, guys. I'm gonna tell my superiors about this.
And then we get a fuck ton of just like deliberation and logistics about how we're gonna handle this situation, and it's like, like it felt like it was 45 minutes of them being like, "Where?"
They even got a guy from the Department of Water and Power in.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, well, what we can do is get some guys down in the tunnels. You see, they got tunnels underneath here. They go through the city right there. It'd be real easy if I was planning on doing something like this. It'd be real easy to get them in there and come right out the floor. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
He's like, and if you need any blueprints or help getting down there, let me know. And they're like, we won't be doing that. Thank you. And that guy's like super, like the air is let out of his balloon when they tell him they don't need him anymore. He's like, damn, okay, all right.
Yeah, he was finally like a special consultant and had the attention of an entire room of law enforcement.
Yeah.
And then it was just all over, and he had to go back to not being a celebrity.
And while they're staking the place out, It's time for Eleanor and Bosch to have more heart-to-heart conversation. Bosch really
Yeah.
gets it off his chest that he doesn't appreciate how she was really Ice Queen about Sharky. And she's like, who cares? And my note is, but you don't understand, Eleanor. Sharky is me!
Yeah. I really want to make his death about me. Part of me died in that tunnel.
I am Sharky. Don't you get it?
And she's like, I'm glad you killed the doll maker.
Oh God, that was
Right.
so crazy.
Yeah, she's
And she
like,
quotes J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah, that's right.
Circus music starts playing in my head at that point.
yeah.
Oh my
She's
God.
like, so did you kill the doll maker on purpose? And he's like, no. She's like, well, if you did, I think that would be pretty dope. And he's like, what? Huh?
Yeah, I think that's actually like pretty hot that you killed that guy.
I guess since I felt Bosch was so crazy, I really expected her to anchor him, but she was just totally insane in a different way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where Bosch is like, pump the brakes. What are you saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you know, Bosch is crazy, but he's not actually a dirty cop.
Right. Right.
He just kind of bends the rules a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But he's also holding space in his brain after she says that he's like, I could fall in love with her, actually.
Yeah, she's the right kind of
There's,
nuts.
yeah, there's many instances where he's like, I wonder if I will fall in love with her. Boy, I sure would like to fall in love with her.
Good news, Bosch.
In 3 days.
Good news.
So alarms had gone off at this place.
Well, hold
For-
on. There's one thing I want to talk about that I think this was the point where I was like, what is happening? This has to be a joke. Because they came up with a code name for the safe as the pawn shop. So that when they're talking over the radio, anybody else who could potentially be listening in wouldn't be tipped off that they're watching the safe and storage.
Right.
And Bosch calls in, he goes, or Eleanor calls in, she's like, we've got eyes on the pawn shop, and we're also keeping a good eye on, and she's like, what's an instrument that pawn shops have? And Bosch says, a saxophone. And she goes, the piano. And he's like, what the fuck? How many times have you ever seen a piano at a pawn shop? They'd need a truck to get it there. And she's like,
She's
don't
really
worry
bad at
about
her
it.
job.
And she like
She's
ribs
so
him
bad.
for it, and he's like, okay, whatever. I was like, what the fuck? Come on.
Why ask?
Yeah, if you're just gonna ignore me, why bother?
The piano.
But yeah, alarms start going off.
Right, and that same thing had happened at the other bank robbery, and so people show up, they look around, nothing's going on, they turn off the alarm, and they just assume like earthquake, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I believe Bosch gets out and starts talking to the owner, and he's like, okay, here's what's gonna happen. I want you to go in, turn off the alarm like nothing happened, and then we're gonna leave.
Mm-hmm. But they've already felt like an explosion underground that like shook Bosch's car, and he's like, "Oh fuck! Like they're here. It's happening. This is what's triggered the alarm." And they have to like. This is around the point where they think that Rourke is the inside man.
Yes, because
And I don't remember how they arrived at that point.
they were watching the bank, and Bosch was like jacked up on coffee. So he's like, Eleanor, you get first, sleep first. I'm wired, so I'm going to be up for a while. And he reads the file that J. Edgar got him.
Mm-hmm.
And in
The
it,
original partner.
Yeah.
It basically says that the person who was like greasing the wheels for Bin and Tran to come over with a bunch of their money was Rourke.
Right, and he knew Meadows as well. He
Yeah.
was his CO, and
Yes.
yeah, and like he had been lying about his connection or had never mentioned it.
Right.
So it was very sus
Right.
because
So he provided the same file, but just
Without
took
all
out
of
the
that
page
information.
with his name in
Redacted
it.
all
Yeah.
that stuff. Right. Okay.
And Bosch was super pissed about this. So when it came time to report in, Eleanor's like, "Oh God, I gotta report into work," and Bosch is like, "Don't worry, I'll do it."
Right.
So he goes to a payphone and he goes, "Hey, Rourke, found a nice little file with your name in it, bud." And he goes, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Mm-hmm.
And basically, in true Bosch fashion, says like, "I know you're the fucking bad guy, and I'm coming for you."
Yeah.
Uh,
Shoot you just like I did that other guy.
yeah, and then shit really starts to kick off.
Yeah. So, and Rourke he's like in charge of the
Yeah,
surveillance, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah,
he's
so
in
he's
charge
leading
of this whole
into the
operation.
setup. Yeah. One thing we haven't mentioned, which I think is kind of funny, is that the guy who runs the safe and lock place, his name is Avery the Third.
Yeah, even though I think he's not actually the third.
No, but you know what? It has a certain ring to it.
It does. It
And I
does.
respect his commitment.
So I think he's described as not actually being the third, but
Mhm.
his dad was the third. But
Yeah.
he kept it for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, that's
I like that it's just
It's very bitch, sir.
Yeah, exactly. One name, 3 Roman numerals.
But in the process, before everything starts kicking off, Lewis and Clark are still hard for Bosch. So they're still following him around, and they saw that he talked to Avery the Third, and they're like, "Oh my god, we got him! Bosch is in on this fucking heist, dude." So they go
Yeah.
talk to Avery the Third, and they're like, "Whatever Bosch told you, don't do, because he is in on it." And he makes Avery the Third go open up the safe, and they're like, "Oh man, we're gonna bust him. All these dudes, Bosch is buttoned up." And as soon as the vault door opens, both Lewis and Clark get fucking smoked.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Immediately. And that whole section, just right from the beginning, because you're following them the whole time. They think Bosch is dirty, and they come up with that idea, and it's just like, don't do it, man.
Bosch is
Please.
running, trying to catch up with them, be like, "What the fuck are you guys doing? Do not go in there." And
And
of
like
course, there's people waiting for them in the vault.
this whole book, I was like, I can't wait for Lewis and Clark to get their just desserts. Like, for them to get caught with their pants down, for real this time. Like, they'll go to jail for this illegal operation they were running. Oh, Clark's brains just got blown out. Okay. Guess that's what we're going with.
Yeah. Just immediate death. Immediate violent death.
Yeah, I think one of them, like Lewis and or Clark, one or the other, has his head fucking explode as he gets shot.
Lewis.
And then the other one gets shot, but is not killed immediately.
No, he gets shot in the chest and he like starts going into shock, I think, and he dies later at the hospital.
Mm.
I didn't think both of them were gonna die. I thought maybe one.
It's good riddance. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I didn't want them to go in there, but I wasn't upset about it, right?
No.
Like,
You just got.
Well,
That's
what happens.
That's what happens.
yeah.
But the chapter ends with Bosch facing his fears, going down in that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the heist crew bailed. They're like, "Fuck this, we're out of here," and they went down in the tunnel. And Bosch was like, "I gotta go down there. My destiny."
right, right. And he shot one of the guys before he was right behind, and he managed to get a shot
he did
off
hit
on
one
him.
of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Eleanor is there too, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll just go down there alone." This seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
And they're like fully decked out bank robbers with assault rifles
Yeah.
and
He's got
night
a
vision
pistol.
goggles.
Yeah.
And he's got a 38 revolver or something.
And like a vest.
But like that's what I've been saying the whole time, right? He's just so impulsive.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also, I think it was just the fact that because it was like the ultimate black and white Nam flashback where he's like, I have to go in that tunnel. I've got to
Right.
go in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole sequence, the whole sequence of him going through the tunnel, my note was, I know Bosch doesn't die, but I'm really nervous. Like, it was really tense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So he's following like a blood trail from the guy he shot, right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he
And
finds
he's crawling through there,
Yeah.
shooting into the dark.
Yeah, he shoots into the dark like 3 times. And I think he kills... No, he doesn't kill the guy he shot. He just finds him dead. Because he bled out.
Right.
Yeah.
And then,
And it smells again.
right, because it's the sewer.
Right.
And he's like
Yeah.
sloshing through shitty water.
It's gross.
And he takes the night vision goggles off of
Art Franklin.
Yeah, Franklin. And heads further in. And he hears like talking between 2 people. And he goes, nice. It's the fucking the guy. The one they're the ringleader. And then I think Bosch slips. Something happens where
He gets shot.
spotted and he starts a shootout with the other guy. He ends up
Right.
shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then as he's laying there trying to get sorted, Rourke comes in.
I think the other guy is Rourke, isn't he?
No.
Yeah.
Was there another guy? I
Not
thought
the
that
bank
he
robber.
was.
Does he kill
Well, no.
the other one?
Yeah.
I think there's only 2 people. There's Art Franklin and Rourke. I think are the only 2 guys in there. Or is there a third
No,
guy?
I think there were 2 bank robbers. And then Rourke comes in to meet them. And I think Bosch kills the second bank robber. And then Rourke is like, you really did me a favor because now
Oh.
my share is bigger.
Oh, right. That's right. Okay. I totally didn't realize there was a third person in there.
But yeah,
But
like Bosch
yeah.
is doing dope Matrix moves where he's like throwing himself on the
Mhm.
ground, firing his gun.
Yeah. He gets really fucked up and
Yeah, he
he
gets
like
hella
starts
shot.
he starts bleeding out and then right, okay. No, it's that he killed Art's partner. So yeah, there was a third guy in there that we just don't get a name for. I think that's why I forgot he existed.
Yeah.
But Rourke comes in and he like
He starts villain
delivers
monologuing.
his villain
It was
monologue.
so good. I loved it. I was so excited.
Yeah,
Oh.
it was the classic, like, and I would have gotten away with it too.
Bosch is shot in the shoulder with an M16, and he's in the sewer laying down in shock. And Work is standing over him, just spilling the beans on everything.
Yeah.
And Bosch is just like, fuck you. And he just can't help himself. It's like the most classic villain monologue. I loved it. It was
He's
so
like,
good.
you were the only odd piece out, Bosch. You really fucked it up.
Mm-hmm.
How are we supposed to know that you would know the fucking guy?
Yeah. And we find out that the reason Meadows died is because he took the bracelet and pawned it so he could buy more heroin.
Yeah.
Because they stole a bunch of things out of the safety deposit boxes so that they wouldn't be tracked for only taking diamonds that weren't even registered as being there. So they were going to do nothing with all of the other things that they stole from the safety deposit boxes so that there would be no trace to the crime that they committed. But Meadows really wanted the money, so he pawned the bracelet, and that's literally the only reason he was killed and that any of these connections were made,
Yeah.
because they left a trail.
And the villains, the only reason the villains failed in this particular instance is because the case happened to belong to Bosch.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like a mad dog with a bone. And that's pissed off Rourke. So he's like, I'm gonna kill you now. Well, hold on, let me talk a little more. Okay, now I'm gonna kill you. And then he gets shot. Because he waffles on killing Bosch like 3 times, and then he gets blown away.
Bosch even trips him at some point.
Yeah.
And he just gets back up and keeps monologuing.
Yeah.
But we don't know who killed Rourke yet. And we get a delightful chapter of Bosch in the hospital, hating every second of it.
Mm-hmm.
Who does he wake up to, though?
Edgar.
Edgar.
Yeah, J. Edgar.
OG Edgar coming through, telling Bosch to not talk and to keep his mouth shut. And he's hurt. Everyone will believe him. It's fine. Just be cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, see you later. I got some houses to sell.
Yeah. Listen.
Yeah.
Don't say nothing, because they're coming for your ass. Harry.
Edgar's. Go ahead.
Oh, he just starts giving him the hot goss basically about what's going on, and Bosch is barely awake. He's like,
yeah,
what?
After having
he's restrained to the bed. He's like, ugh.
After having Vietnam fever dreams, the first thing he hears is J. Edgar going don't say nothing.
Harry.
Edgar really came through. I mean, that file. There was something earlier too.
He's a good boy.
He's also
dialing it in, but his work is top notch.
Yeah.
He's the one who told him the FBI was the one who took Meadows' case file and also Bosch's. Which was
every once in a while he just shows up. He's like Gandalf.
Yeah. Just at the right time with all the right resources.
But after J. Edgar leaves, a whole procession of bureaucratic dickheads turn up.
Yeah.
Including a couple of people from the FBI, Irving, and someone else. But they're basically like, you better watch what you say, motherfucker. Because we're not going down for none of this.
Yeah.
And Bosch is like, but Rourke, he was FBI. And they're like, no, he wasn't. He died a hero.
Yeah, they just showed up and they let him know what happened and that he can't talk to the press.
Yeah. He's like, Lewis and Clark bugged my phone, and Irving is like, no, they didn't.
Definitely.
They did not.
They definitely
bug
did
your
not.
phone.
And don't look into that, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Bosch gets mad, and he has a little white boy summer moment where he knocks over a vase of flowers.
Yeah. He does his little I can't stand it in here anymore.
Gotta get out.
And then I believe Eleanor turns up and she's like, hey, did you get my flowers? And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, they were daisies. And he's like, oh, I knocked over a pot of daisies.
Oh, I guess they haven't come yet. They only deliver up here once a day. By the way, don't come on the other side of my bed, please, please, please.
And she was like, daisies, like the ones from your house. And he's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, the ones that grow on the hill at the bottom of your house.
And then things start clicking for Bosch.
Wait a minute. Eleanor says to him that she has some money and that she's going to quit and leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. She's going to quit the FBI.
You have money?
Yeah. Now?
Yeah, she lives on the beach. She's loaded. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe prices in the 90s in LA were way better.
Yeah.
But Bosch starts replaying things in his head that makes things click. Like when Rourke said, my share just got bigger, and he's like, if he was in charge and it was only like the four of them, wouldn't he have the only share?
Right.
He wouldn't say my share just got bigger.
And
That
Bosch
was
also just found out that it was Eleanor that showed up and shot Rourke.
yeah,
Right.
right. And then he was like, wait a minute. How would Eleanor know what the flowers on the hill next to my house look like? She only came over when it was nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when I wrote, no, it can't be Eleanor. As like some sort of like defiant, I won't hear it.
Yeah.
Don't tell me no lies, Buck.
Yeah. Bosch breaks out of the hospital at this point because he wants to go to Meadows' funeral.
Yeah.
And the hospital's calling. They're like, excuse you, why did you leave? Everyone is calling him. He has like 15 voicemails in the first 5 minutes after he gets out of the hospital. They're like, you better get back to the hospital right now. And also stop investigating. And so he's like, I think, is he sitting in his car? Is he at the graveyard, like listening to these tapes again of the interview that he and Eleanor did with Sharky?
I think
And
he does that at the precinct.
Okay. Right.
But he goes to the memorial, the replica of the Vietnam memorial. And
this is after he
Is it?
listens to the interview is like the first thing where he's like, fuck.
Okay.
Because he gets the tape where he hears what Eleanor and Sharky were saying to each other when he was out of the room.
Right.
And Eleanor is asking Sharky if
do you recognize me?
I think, yeah, it's either I think it's Eleanor asking Sharky if he recognizes her. And Bosch starts spiraling at this point. He's like, fuck.
Yeah.
And then
I start spiraling.
Yeah. Well, same. Yeah.
Because, okay, in the show, which is the only context I have for Bosch up to this point, Eleanor and Bosch get married and have a kid. So when I'm seeing that she's like the perpetrator of this crime, I'm like, what? What do you mean? They were supposed to get married and fall in love and have kids. What is this?
Yeah. And then get divorced, but like be cool about it.
And then she gets murdered, but never mind that.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah,
Spoilers.
He's like, wait, why would she ask Sharky that unless she was making sure he didn't see her? And then he's like, what else has she been lying about? And then he goes to the funeral and he checks out the memorial and finds out that that brother who never came back from Vietnam or died in Vietnam never did. His name is not on the memorial list.
Mm-hmm.
And then he confronts her about it.
Yeah, he's piecing more of the things together. Like, I think they bring up the hypnotist thing again. Like,
right.
Eleanor brings up the idea of hypnotizing Sharky to Rourke. So they're like, fuck, we have to intervene and kill this guy so he doesn't reveal any information about.
He's a good hypnotist. We didn't get to
Yeah,
see
I guess the hypnotist they know is a fucking ace because they're so worried about what's gonna happen if they hypnotize him.
But to be clear, it was Rourke and Eleanor that were in the truck and put the body in the pipe.
Right.
That's right.
It's just that Sharky didn't have quite a clear look as he thought, so he thought it was two dudes.
Yeah. And then this is when he goes to the memorial and he meets up with it's like a media circus, and he has that one reporter Bremer who he talks to about the whole thing, and he's like, look into these things because no one's investigating. Everybody's like, Rourke died a hero, but Bosch is like, get the media to go to Rourke's funeral because I bet you they're going to try and keep this really quiet, and that's how like that they're trying to cover something up. And Bosch is so mad right at this point that he really wants to tell like Bremer everything about the case, but he's like, no, I gotta have like my sensibilities about me. He's like, good sense kicks in at the last minute, and he only feeds him the details that are necessary for him to like build a story.
Yeah.
But then he goes and confronts Eleanor.
And when he does, it's this whole. She explains like the only reason she did it was because she wanted to get back at Rourke for essentially like Rourke and Bin and Tran for killing her brother who died in LA due to a heroin overdose or something because he used
Why
to he was a
he was
courier for
killed.
them.
Yeah, he was smuggling heroin for them, and he decided to steal it.
Yeah.
Or that was what was suggested,
Yeah.
and they hunted him down and gave him a
Mm.
hot dose, just like Meadows.
Yeah, they gave him a
Yeah,
big
that's right.
fat dose.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, that might be the flimsiest excuse for revenge. To like commit this multi-tiered conspiracy heist. That seems really
Yeah.
thin.
Like, I think the people she wanted to get revenge on was like the captains mostly, but she wanted to create a situation where everybody got hurt. It was like
Yeah.
the most like, what's the path of like most pain for all involved? And I think Rourke was just like a casualty because she knew he was close to the case and was easily manipulated
Yeah.
or something like that. But
And she came up
it
with
was
this
so
idea of
weird.
stealing diamonds, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm in, sure."
Yeah. Oh, right. She knew he was dirty too.
Yeah.
But like the motive for everything was very flimsy, but she tries to frame it in a way where it's like, you know how everybody has one core truth about who they are. For her, it all revolved around her brother dying a hero in Vietnam. It was really weird.
Yeah.
And so when
Well,
she found out that he didn't, like, it ruined her life forever.
Yeah.
her parents had told her when she was a kid that he did die in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And she ended up going to the memorial and not finding his name and not finding out that he died of the heroin
Right.
overdose
Like,
much
Right.
later. And she really made a point about how much her brother meant to her.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not sure. Like it's hard to see where that motive comes from because we don't really hear that much about their relationship. Like it's
Mhm.
just kind of her
Right.
saying
Yeah.
how important he was.
And like the majority of her talking about him is how she's like, "Oh, well, it's wild that during that conversation where Bosch was talking about Meadows and how he went crazy and never wanted to leave." And she's like, "Wow, the people who don't want to leave get to come home and be fine, but the people who don't even want to be there never get to leave."
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
God. But that's like the most, because it's never like we did this when we were kids or we had a really close relationship. It was always just like my brother is dead in a
Mhm.
different country.
It didn't feel like a satisfying. Like I was so happy with what happened with Rourke
Yeah.
and this Eleanor's character in general bugged me. I'm kind of glad to hear Nightmother's take that like it was an honest romance, right? That's
Yeah. But like as Eleanor is explaining this, Bosch is like, "Okay, cool. You're gonna turn yourself in." And she's like, "I can't." And he's like, "I don't give a shit if you can or can't. You're going to. Because what you did is bad." He's like, "I'll
yes.
think about it."
Yeah, he gives her a time limit. He's like, "You have a day to do this, or I'm going to the press." No, I don't think he says that, but I think he's like, "I'm gonna go." He's gonna do something. He's gonna
He
give a
was gonna
tape to
tell
someone.
the police captains,
Yeah.
and he said
Right.
they're gonna kill
Oh,
him.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's gonna. Yeah. tell the people whose diamonds she stole.
More wild threats.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it turns out that she did. She went and like turned herself in.
Yeah, he
And
has to go back to the hospital and
because he's
he
at the
like finds out
hospital
the
and
truth.
someone's like, yeah, she like someone comes to talk to him and is like follow-up questions for an interrogation kind of thing, like tell me about this, this, and this, and it's all relating to Eleanor. And he's like, okay, cool, she turned herself in.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, so how bad is it for her? She's like, well, she'll get like 30 months
Mm-hmm.
for like some wild federal conspiracy. She's getting off as
Yeah.
easy as can be.
And
Yeah.
that also made it less satisfying because it just felt incomplete, I guess.
It felt like it felt very tidy, too tidy.
Right.
Like all of the loose ends were getting wrapped up
And
very
that's something I
clearly.
appreciated about it after, reading other books where there's plots going everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's just she was such an emotional character, and she didn't seem like someone that could pull off something that
Did
complicated.
she? Dun, dun, dun. I mean, like, it's weird because we don't really get a lot of description into Eleanor's mannerisms beyond what she's reacting to in the moment. So it's hard to say that her being able to pull off this massive scheme is out of character or it doesn't seem right because we don't know too much about her.
Yeah.
Other than she had a brother that died in Vietnam, and also she works for the FBI, and
Yeah.
she likes Bosch.
Yeah. And has a scar on her lip and
Yeah, I wonder where that came from.
has a sad kind of like hotness about her.
Oh,
And
wait,
like
no.
everything we get is like through
We-
Bosch's eyes.
We did get that story where she got in a bike crash, and as
Mm-hmm.
she fell off the bike, her brother said, "It's all gonna be okay." Whoa! And then she said, "In that moment, I knew it was gonna be fine." I'm like, "You fell off a bike. Get over it."
Yeah, that was like the defining moment of her life. It was like at that point, she knew that like her brother was the center of her world forever.
Very weird.
Yeah.
But Eleanor sends him a bunch of shit. No, only one thing.
The print from her pastel house
The
that didn't fit.
Nighthawks painting print.
Mhm.
And the book ends with Bosch looking at it and going, "I am that man."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be
Good on you.
alone now.
But she said that about herself when he went to her house. Like she's like, I don't know who I am in the painting. Probably the person who's just sitting by myself. And like
Everybody
they just
says that. Everybody says that about that fucking painting. Everyone is that guy sitting alone.
but they bonded over it. But there's one part where Pounds comes into Bosch's hospital room and he's like, wouldn't it be nice to retire for you right
Yeah.
now? Like you get 80% income. Like think about it. Cause he's like, you're coming back to Hollywood Homicide, or
Yeah, call it out.
you could retire.
Just pack it in, Bosch.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Fuck you, Pounds."
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
And Pounds does like the, "Damn it! Fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see you on Monday." But that's
Yeah. That's it.
That's it. That's the end of this book.
Mm-hmm.
I
Do you think you'll read more Bosch books?
I would like to, but there's like 27 of them.
Yeah.
I will say that, this book was fun, and I felt like I got through it really quickly and easily. It was easy to read.
Yeah.
I could read another one, I think, pretty quickly. Like it was good. And
Yeah.
I haven't read a crime novel since I was 9.
Yeah, honestly, same. Like used to read Eric Wilson mystery novels as a child, which are all
Whoa.
Canadian set mysteries about two twins, and they have one called The Kootenai Kidnapper. And I felt seen.
Couple of
But
murders down there in the Yukon, eh?
yeah, there was one where they stole like the golden boy figurehead from the top of the Winnipeg government buildings.
Whoa.
And those were really the only crime novels I ever read before this one.
I love crime novels. Like, I love detective novels. That is most of what my bookshelf is. I think it's like 60% detective novels, 20% spy novels, and then like the rest of the last 20% is a hodgepodge of stuff that seemed interesting. But I love detective. And I have never read Bosch, who is one of the like quintessential detectives in literature, and I'm glad I have. I would like to read more, but there's so many. I don't have as many credits as I would like on Audible, so we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have a better view of crime novels after this.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Great genre. Great.
Yeah. But Mincy, I super recommend the show. It's really good.
Yeah, I'll check
Yeah.
it out.
It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
People are sleeping on most of the stuff that Amazon's got.
True.
Mincy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I had a great time.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah, I did too.
And you can come back whenever you'd like.
Hell yeah.
But if you'll stick around for just a couple more minutes, because we have to spin the wheel for our next book.
Right. That's right. It's been so long since the wheel was spun.
And I have here with me 5 selections. Put it in front. We've got Forever in a Day by Anthony Horowitz, which is a James Bond novel. We have The Devil You Know by Mike Carey, which is a sort of exorcist detective book. I have read this one before, and it's one of my favorite book series. I love it, and I can't wait to hopefully land on it so that I can force Nightmother to read it. We also have The Black Company by Glenn Cook, which is a fantasy badass mercenary company doing cool shit, allegedly. I only know about this book via recommendation. We also have The Killing Floor by Lee Child, which is a Jack Reacher book. And the 5th book that I'm very excited about is called Existentially Challenged by Yancey Croshaw, the sequel to Differently Morphous.
It's out.
Which came out 4 days ago.
Nice.
So, let's spin that wheel and see what we get.
Kind of nervous. They all sound good, honestly.
Do.
There's no like
We'll go wrong.
cringe young adult fantasy on there, so
The Killing Floor. It almost landed on Yahtzee Croshaw.
it was really close. That's the
Okay.
Jack Reacher one?
Yeah, Jack Reacher, the first Jack Reacher book.
Okay.
That just
Nice.
means that we'll sneak all of the other books I had on that list in somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I guess we're reading The Killing Floor, or just Killing Floor.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that.
Could be
I
interesting.
feel like Yeah. Is it like what would be like the genre of that? Is
Mystery?
action a book genre? Okay,
No,
mystery.
it isn't.
It's an action book. Things happen.
Right. I think that's it. We've got our next book. Tune in 2 weeks from now
Mhm.
because we're going to start it.
But only a portion this time, not the whole
Yeah,
book.
we're not cramming books anymore. When we finish with the Killing Floor, we've got a book with full tour that I just started today. And it might be one of the dumbest things I've ever read in a long time. In the best way.
Nice.
There's this book, there has been a scene where a guy, the main character, spun out his car and specifically hit the wheel of a curb so that his car would flip and it would launch him further. And
That's
I'm
an
like,
action book.
yes!
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, this is an action
is
book.
a book genre.
And
Perfect.
already a reference to Bon Jovi in it, so you know it's going to be rad.
Of course.
So stick tuned for that. Thanks for joining us, everybody who watched and chatted, even though we ignored all of you. Me and Nightmother will be back tomorrow for Star Wars. Mincy will probably be streaming
Project Zomboid.
within the hour. Yeah, and probably Project Zomboid. You can find him at magic_Mincy Twitch. I don't know if you've got anything else. Do you have a YouTube or anything?
No.
Okay, then just Twitch, magic_Mincy. Okay, we're leaving now. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Farewell.